All right. Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and my lovely NBs. Today we're going to be going over the Group E of Town of 21 here in Tooth and Tail Competitive. So, I am Jason Blade, and I'm going to be very excited for this one since it has been a while since I've last done a casting, and we're going to go into Group E. Now, for each of the groups in this stage is they're going to be dealing with a different variety of rules that are set by the townsfolk, which was, I believe, was the mayor. And for Group E, they are going to be going under the premium maps, which are maps that have been created for like the premium slot, and we do have a total of 4 of them in total. Now, the first game, it will be completely randomized of what map they're going to be picking. And then after that, it will be loser's pick for the next couple of matches. So it will be a best of 3 in this case. As well as, let me go ahead and double check the rules real quick as well for premium. So, yeah. So essentially, the loser gets to pick the map that they want to use, but they cannot use the same map if they have already picked it. So, there is only one map that has a special rule within the premium maps, and that is Hagro Pass. So Hagro Pass, you are not allowed to use any moles whatsoever on that map. So I have no idea which map is going to be used for each. I don't know what they look like, so this is going to be an interesting one to go into here. But the first matchup we're going to be looking into is Grace and going up against Jordy here in match E. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop on in. So for the blue, we have Jordy and Miss Grace going over to the green, and this is certainly a map right here. This is definitely a very linear map between the two. A lot of things have been going on. Just it seems like a very chaotic start. So there's going to be a lot happening here. So of course this is not going to be an interesting one, as Jordy is trying to go ahead and get things started, but Miss Grace going for the tier 3 almost automatically. Just gonna go ahead and hop right on into it. So looking at the just looking at the comps right now, as things are really starting to get a little bit juicy, we do see that Jordy was trying to dive deep into it, but he does not have enough health to really go ahead and scout this Badger. But Miss Grace will be rocking 2 tier 3s here with the Badger and the Wolf. Meanwhile, we're seeing Miss Grace going ahead and building a couple of balloons, while Jordy going after the Artie, which is a very interesting case. And we're seeing that Jordy is going to cancel any kind of chance for the balloon to be poked out here. Now, looking into things right here, as Miss Grace will be having only 1 tier 1, as well as 2 tier 2s with the Squirrel, Falcon, and Skunk, and then the balloons being their structure. Meanwhile, Jordy is going to go ahead and get his Artie out and about. So this one right here is going to be pretty much gone in the next few seconds, but it's going to leave this thing wide open, and Miss Grace is going to be in a very tough spot, as Miss Grace really trying to rely on trying to refarm, as she would imagine that this one's not going to go very well. And you can imagine that this mill is going to be gone now with the Artie just doing its magic. And that is going to be the case. So now Jordy is in a really huge advantage. But Miss Grace does have her Badger out. We'll see if it's going to do any kind of damage. If it starts getting revved up and gets healed up, that's going to be huge. He does take out one of the wrist mills, but the Badger is going to go down as the Artie goes down as well. So Jordy is in a really good position to probably take this game 1. So this is going to be something for sure. But I will say that even though that Miss Grace is pretty much down only to 1 mil, it is going to be a little bit of a safety hazard because of the fact that there's so many turrets out and about for Miss Grace. So maybe they can help defend just a little bit, just so she'll be able to get another Badger out. But it's not going to be much, as now Jordy is able to overcome with the amount of units that he has, especially with all the Falcons. The Falcons doing all the damage that they can, but he's not doing a really good job of focusing on the right things. I would imagine that taking out a couple of those turrets, or at least moving the army around here to possibly just go attack from the side. But another set should be able to give Jordy the W here, as we do see the Badger come out, and now all of the turrets are dead. So now we all have left is the Badger, and the Badger making a lot of damage right now so far. But right now, only down to 4 health. And I'm pretty sure he's going to try and focus fire the heck out of it. But the Badger is going to go ahead and take a bath. But he can't have enough time to do that because of the fact that there's so much damage being put into it. It's just in a really tough spot now, Miss Grace. Miss Grace trying to get the fight in, but that's not going to do any kind of damage. And I think that's going to be game going over to Jordy. So that's just gonna how it is. So Jordy will take the first game as he goes up 1-0. So very, very, very difficult matchup there for Miss Grace, as the army value just became very, very much apparent between the two, and the income was just a little bit too much. Trying to go for that early Badger play probably wasn't the move. Probably just slowly trying to build it up before then. Like, it's a very hefty map here. Well, you can say that Jordy will be taking the first game. So now we will go ahead and go into the second game right here. We'll see if Jordy is able to go up 2-0 and win the series outright. Or will Miss Grace be able to take in the second one? Okay. All right, so Jordy down on the south east position. Meanwhile, we go over to Miss Grace, who already put down an owl in the northwest position. My goodness, this is a very interesting one. I have never heard a lot of wind coming through here. I'm wondering if there's like a special thing going on for this one. I'm not too sure, but looking into it, both players have owls starting off in this one. I don't know, but neither player is going to have switch it up a little bit. So Jordy going with the squirrel as the main tier 1, along with the pigeons, as well as going into the falcon, and then we have 3 tier 3s on Jordy's end, going for the Badger, Owl, and Fox. Meanwhile, for Miss Grace, this is going to be a Squizzard combination. Also, with the Falcon and Skunk as the tier 2, and also with the Owl and the Wolf as the tier 3. So very interesting cost between both of them. I would say that Jordy is certainly going to go for a more pokey type of style, while Miss Grace, I would say that this is going to be a massive tier 1 type of angle for Miss Grace as well. As we see that Miss Grace is already going to go ahead and get into her second mill as long with the Jordy. Like I said, these these custom maps are certainly very interesting, to say the least. The ideas that people come up with has been very interesting so far. But we are going to see that Miss Grace is going to go into the tier 2 early with the skunks. Definitely going to help out. But Jordy is just saying bump tier 1. We're going to go mass tier 2 just to go ahead and get things started as they prepare to go ahead and get the mice being the primary tier 1 here in this instance. And so far, things are looking pretty slow as Miss Grace may have already scouted the 2. Yep. Miss Grace definitely has scouted the 2 tier 2s over. So I would imagine that she'd probably respond with another tier 2 of her own. Maybe some falcons, who knows? Or is she going to plan on getting... It looks like she's going to get for another tier 3, which might be the wolf here, I'd imagine. And that is going to be the case. So, Miss Grace will be going with the wolf being thrown down already. Meanwhile, Jordy also putting down a second tier 3 as well, but this time it's going to be the Badger. So, we're seeing some very hefty units coming down very early on in this game. I gotta say, this is a very interesting lineup between the two. As right now, Miss Grace looking to see if there was any other shenanigans going on. Probably going to see that, and I'm pretty sure she did saw that one. Oh, oops, wrong one. So making sure that she did scout it. Yep, she did. So that's pretty much going to be put into this case. But we are seeing that Jordy is going to be able to scout the wolf that's coming. And I would imagine that he's going to go ahead and start adding in a couple of pigeons to try and keep the health going for the Badger. So meanwhile, both players are really trying to set up their armies very well. We're seeing that Miss Grace is slowly going to get into a mass tier 1 combination. Not really going to focus on the lizards too much, but instead going to be focused on getting as much squirrels as possible. A little floating on her end as well. So I would imagine that she's probably looking to put another tier 3. Yep, that's going to be the case. A second owl will come down. So a combination of, I guess you could say, Sowl, I guess. Like a mixer of squirrel owl for this combination. This is going to be interesting. Meanwhile, for Jordy, I think he'd be able to counter this pretty well because he's got a lot of falcons that he's getting ready to set up. Plus, with the fact that it's really going to depend on the timing of when the attack happens on Miss Grace's end. Because Miss Grace is looking to possibly try and get as much done as possible with these mass squirrels as being the main go-to, but here we are. We're going to see the owl come in a little bit later with it being somewhat blocked because of all the squirrels that are happening. We do see it finally get paid off. But this is going to be an interesting one. I have never seen 2 comps like this before. So it's going to be something. Meanwhile, Jordy does get the 3rd mill. I would imagine that Miss Grace may want to go ahead and get for a 3rd one as well, just for safety precautions. But I think she might be ready to go ahead and set things up for her 3rd owl to come. And she does bring the wolf over to try and bring it out faster. Try to speed things up. I'm not sure what the speed boost is when it comes to building a unit here, but I imagine it'd probably cut from like another 60 seconds to maybe 40. But I don't know. That's just me guessing. But now we're seeing that Miss Grace is going to go ahead and build that 3rd mill. And really start trying to slowly but surely getting down the turret. And with that being fully built, we're seeing a lot more tier 1s. Look at that, over 50 over 50 squirrels. This is insane. Oh my goodness. I've never seen something like this before. This is wild. The Miss Grace is just going mass squirrel, mass owl in ways I've never seen before. But we also got a whole lot of falcons as well to pair up with 2 badgers and an owl with a whole lot of pigeons. This is going to be one heck of a battle as we're just seeing a whole mess of things. We'll see who's going to be able to be on top. And so far, it looks like Miss Grace may be the one taking most of it as she's able to take down the mill. And most of Jordy's army is just basically toasted. There's nothing much that he could really do here as the wolf-owl combination, along with like over 50 squirrels, is going to be what's going to take this entire map. As now Jordy is starving, and I think it's going to be it. And he is going to surrender here. And Miss Grace with a wild game too. Whoa, oh my goodness, man. That is insane how that was able to go down that quickly. that was honestly kind of fun, man. That was a wild one. I did not imagine that to be going the way it did. I had no clue who was going to win that because of how much was happening at once. That was good. That was good. All right, so with that, both are tied now, 1 apiece. Let's go ahead and dive into game 3 and see who's going to win between Jordy and Grace. Oh my goodness. So, going over to the west side, we have Jordy in the blue. Meanwhile, Miss Grace in the east side in the green, in for a more deserty type of terrain. Like I said, I don't know the map names for any of these. I'm probably gonna like get a chance to look at them and kind of name them later on in like post editing, but it is what it is. But now we're seeing things come into fruition as we do see some moles in the early going, as well. Actually both players have a mole each, it looks like. So for Jordy, we have a a lull. Would we call it like a lull combination for tier 1? Lizard and mole. And going it, and for the tier 2s, we're having a falcon and a cams. And then once again 2-2-3s with boar and owl. Meanwhile, for Miss Grace, she is going to be in a little bit of trouble here, as we do see a couple of moles being pesky right here for the early goings. It's going to take out a farm, and now we're seeing another that one mole is going to go down because of that strategy. So he will lose the one mole that he was given in the early going of the game. Meanwhile, Miss Grace is going to go ahead and throw in a turret, but I'm sure that's going to get sold since there's no need for it anymore. But we'll see if she does. I'm pretty sure she will at some point. But Miss Grace is going to put down a couple of tier 1 warrens as well. But now we're seeing some lizard harassment in the early going as well from Jordy, and that mill might be gone because Miss Grace does not have the ability to try and defend it, so that's going to be gone here. So that's 60 food already lost for Miss Grace in the early going. So not really a good start for Miss Grace, and Miss Grace going for the desperation wolf play. But right now we are going to see a quick battle here. This is going to be fended off well. No picks are going to go down from there outside of the one. So right now Miss Grace is struggling to try and stay afloat in the early goings of this game. Meanwhile, Jordy is going to be looking kind of scot-free, as it looks like that Miss Grace is going to go try and counter back, trying to focus on getting some of this down, but it's not looking too good here, as the squirrels are not going to be able to get any of the job done. So Jordy be able to defend very well. Looks like Miss Grace wants to try and go after this one more time, but I don't think it's a good idea, especially this early going with the falcon in play. And now the second falcon is going to come out. There's no way that Miss Grace is going to go into that, so she will retreat. So Miss Grace doing a pretty solid job of retreating, but it's not going to look very good as the attack. Miss Grace is just trying to struggle, trying to stay afloat with the amount of things that she's so far behind, because like the army value, even though Miss Grace is going to have more in this juncture, the economy is really what's killing her right now. So Miss Grace is trying to do some scouting, but it's not going to do good. And now we even see more of a concern because the boar is going to be coming out pretty soon, is being built. But not to worry too much, because the wolf's going to come out pretty soon. Miss Grace is a little bit of a concern because she's only putting out tier 1 right now. I mean, she's just trying to find some kind of time to get things going. She will put out a couple of mole warrens, but that's just going to be mainly used for taking. don't think it'll be out in time, and I don't think it's a good idea to attack now, especially with the wolf just coming in, lagging that far behind. This is just not a good attack there on Miss Grace's end. It would have been good for her to make sure that the wolf cashed out before even charging in. But now she's looking to try and get some damage done with some of the few squirrels that she has. But again, she's attacking way too early. Her army is nowhere near as full as she would like it to be. So she's going to have to retreat once again. This is not looking good there for Miss Grace. And it just seems like that Jordy is just controlling all the pacing. Very much ahead on the economy, very much ahead on the army, and now Jordy's trying to cause more damage here, but Miss Grace is going to be able to fend off very well, but the wolf is barely going to survive with 1 HP. Oh my goodness, that's so juicy. But now Miss Grace is trying to see if she can go for a counterattack, but again, this is not going to be a good idea because the boar is now out, and that probably is going to be the game ceiling here, as the wolf is definitely going to go down, and now Jordy has nothing to fear, as Miss Grace has nothing but a few tier 1 in the pocket. So Miss Grace is probably going to end up losing here, as Jordy being able to go for the critical early attack for both from the moles as well as the lizard harassment in the early going that put Miss Grace in a bad spot, and Jordy will be taking this series 2-1. So really good matchup there for Jordy. GG's all around.